Kathryn Miles is with us. She's the journalist and author of Superstorm, 9 Days Inside Hurricane Sandy. Her website, Kathryn, Kathryn, Miles, Miles.net. And Kate, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks for joining us. Tell us about our broken or failing weather infrastructure. What's the story here?
Well, this is sort of the surprise plot line that came up when I was researching what I thought was a book largely about Hurricane Sandy, and the book was about that. But in my investigative reporting, what I uncovered was a really sort of badly, chronically underfunded weather system in our country that over the decades has become a real crisis of personal safety and, frankly, national security.
Yeah, you wrote a brilliant piece for the New York Times back, about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago?
Mm-hmm.
Our failing weather infrastructure, laying this out. Do you want to give us some of the details?
Sure. I mean, going back about 40 years, when NOAA was founded, it was under President Nixon. And this is a somewhat apocryphal story, but true as far as I can tell. He was angry about his Secretary of the Interior's stance on the Vietnam War. And so rather than locating the National Weather System Service and NOAA in the Department of Interior, which was a much more logical fit, what he did was he located it within the Department of Commerce. And ever since, what we've seen is a lot of sort of bureaucratic wrangling, sort of political give and take that's left NOAA really underfunded. And as technology develops, as our need for information and data develops, the NOAA system as a whole has been crumbling. And so now we're in this infrastructure crisis where we have weather satellites that are long past their predicted lifespan. We may have a weather satellite gap. We have these repeated outages in terms of the weather network. Just last summer, an Android app literally crashed the National Weather Service page. And so what we have is these very talented meteorologists, very underfunded, dealing with outmoded equipment, and often not able to predict our weather in a way that they could if we actually funded the program.
And then on top of that, we're in an era of global warming where the weather is getting weirder and wilder and more dangerous.
That's right. That's right. And what they are telling me is everything we thought we knew about storms is changing. And so we have things like the USGS reissuing flood zone maps. We have new technology that we need in terms of anticipating storm surge. We have things like tornadoes in places where we don't usually have them. And again, we have these meteorologists who can't necessarily tell us what they need to because of the sort of political wrangling that's happened.
Yeah, you said that in the 20 years leading up to Hurricane Sandy in 2012, the United States suffered 133 weather disasters, each exceeding $1 billion in damages for a total of $875 billion. What's the cost to beef up our weather infrastructure so that we can warn people about such things?
That's a great question. And it's really a sliding scale. It's what are Americans willing to pay to invest? If you look at right now, budgets for things like NASA defense satellites, those are exponentially higher than the budget for our weather satellite program, our so-called civilian weather satellite program. One of the most shocking things I encountered was the fact that the National Weather Service currently has about 400 unstaffed positions, more in fact that we had even when Sandy hit. And these are high-level forecasting technology type positions. We have one surge expert at the National Hurricane Center responsible for predicting the surge for the entire country. So there's multiple funding lines here that we really need to think about. We need to think about technology. We need to think about staffing. We need to think about preventive mechanisms that we can put in place that will save the lives of Americans.
The military, is fighting wars in parts of the world where they have to know the weather. How do they get weather information, weather forecasts in, for example, Afghanistan and Iraq?
Well, we have weather satellites that are run by the military, and that's part of the problem, really. When you think about these polar orbiting satellites, which have recently been put on the GAO watch list as one of the most sort of like precarious federal systems that we have here. We have these two weather satellites that are our so-called civilian weather satellites. They orbit around the planet each day and provide these sort of like broad stroke images that we use for our long-range forecasting. Those are the two satellites that are past their lifespan. We're already, because that's happening, we're already relying on some of these military satellites to provide some of the civilian forecasting. But meanwhile, the funding keeps going to the Department of Defense and NASA. And then meanwhile, NOAA is kind of left behind.
Should we, given that most Republicans and some Democrats are kind of the mind that whatever the military wants, they get, just throw money at them. But when it comes to anything else, the civilian stuff, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we can't endanger the tax cuts for the Koch brothers. Might it not be politically a wise idea to lobby to move NOAA under the DoD?
That's a very controversial question, and I think there are some people who see that as a great solution. I frankly like the idea of putting it under the Department of Interior. I think it's living with the types of organizations and programs that I think we really need. I don't think it needs to be a military program. I think there's a lot going on with weather that's sort of independent of the military. I'd like to see it kept separate just because I don't think we need a militarized weather system. But that would be probably one way to secure funding.
Yeah, remarkable. What do you know about what the next Congress will, in all probability, do with regard to the deficiencies in our weather system?
I don't think we know. I think that probably, we're going to be looking at additional cuts. I think probably we're going to be looking at, again, this sort of skewed focus on military expenditures rather than weather expenditures. And, I think really this is a chance for like sort of good old fashioned grassroots democracy. If, we as residents and citizens feel like the weather is important to us, I feel like we really have this sort of moral and ethical obligation to start demanding that we're being taken care of as well as the military is being taken care of in terms of weather expenditure.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Kate Miles, the website Kathryn Miles, KathrynMiles.net. Kate, thanks so much for dropping by today and for writing a brilliant piece for the Times and for all of us.
Oh, it really was my pleasure. Thanks so much for the work that you do, too.
Thank you. Great talking with you.